Farming in the Zone is brought to you by John Deere and your local John Deere dealer. Nothing runs like a Deere.
As we've learned the past 2 days, as the cost of inputs grows, so does the importance of not wasting an ounce. That's why more farmers are turning to zone management as a way to not only save, but become more efficient. National reporter Tyne Morgan is here with more. Tyne?
Thanks, Clinton. Well, as you know from your work on Corn College TV, Farm Journal field agronomists Missy Bauer and Ferrie have been practicing zone management for years. From beginners to veterans, they've worked with farmers across the country, teaching them how to craft their zones and then implement their plan from paper to planting. County by county, field by field, soil types can change not just by the acre, but by the foot. Farm Journal field agronomist Missy Bauer says that's exactly what zone management is all about, managing the extreme variability in any given field.
So if I look across this field and there's maybe soil that's more lower in elevation versus up higher on the hills, or if there's different yielding areas in that field, I want to now break it down into those zones.
But characterizing the different zones takes work. That's why she says a farmer can't just use one tool to draft the zones.
According to the soil survey, this is saying this is all one soil type. But you can see there's huge responses in yield in this part compared to this part up here.
Sure.
So I need to find out a way to characterize this better. Maybe it's utilizing the yield data, maybe it's other aerial imagery, maybe it's just going out there and you find that, you know what, this part of the field is actually a little lower elevation and that's where the water tends to run to, and it's going to be a little bit better fertility there and have better characteristics than it is up here.
She says by visiting all the different maps, you can further define the zones.
So you take a look at this map, how we've created these zones, and if we compare it back to just the soil survey. So again, the soil survey said there was 4 soils in here with these 4 different colors. Our lines of the management zones we created utilizing more than one source of information is what the black lines are on here.
As Bauer mentioned, creating management zones requires more than just one source. She says the various tools that can be used are finding the soil types, including both county soil survey data and in-field knowledge based on texture and color of the soil. Yield maps, aerial imagery, which can be found on Google or hired out, NDVI, in-season imagery, and thermal imaging are also good tools. But the key tool is a farmer's personal knowledge and experience of the field. She says there's no magic number on how many zones should be in a field, but a farmer does need to take into consideration what his or her equipment is able to do.
So if you have a spreader that's spreading 90 feet or you've got a planter that's only working in 60-foot swaths, you want to take into consideration the actual equipment. We're not going to change something every 5 or 6 feet.
Once the zones are mapped and the planting and fertilization plan is in place, Farm Journal agronomist Ferrie says then a farmer needs to use all that data to plant.
So typically we would send a paper copy with that grower to the field, and this would tell him what his population should be in the field itself. So as he pulls those fields up, he can monitor and make sure that the populations are correct.
He says the data is transferred to whichever monitor will control the planter.
The important thing is making sure the map, how it was built, is compatible with the controller back there on the planter and the software that you're running in here.
Both Ferrie and Bauer say it's essential to actually walk your fields and make sure what you physically see matches the data in your hand.
Ground truth your zones. The idea that we can just make these zones on the computer with all this data that we have and assume that that's going to be perfect when you go to the field, we have yet to find a system that can do that.
Ferrie says he knows a lot of technology is involved, but in order to be effective at zone management, you have to study your data to really know it. And while he knows some of the tools are a want instead of a need, the more acres you farm and the more efficient you become, the bigger the paybacks can be.